The florist called me on a Tuesday morning to confirm the centerpiece order, and I almost laughed out loud because my name wasn't even on the invitation. Not as a bridesmaid, not as family, not as anything. But somehow, my credit card was on file for $700 worth of peonies and baby's breath. I stood in my kitchen, phone pressed to my ear, and said, "I'm sorry, can you repeat that?" And when she did, something in my chest cracked wide open, and I thought, how did I get here? How did I become the person who pays for a wedding she wasn't even invited to attend as a guest, for a woman who once told me I was the worst thing that ever happened to her family? And the worst part? The absolute worst part was that when I looked at my husband across the room, he wouldn't meet my eyes. My abusive sister-in-law is getting married, and somehow I'm still expected to play nice. My name is Darcy, and I'm 33 years old. I'm a second-grade teacher, married to a man named Hollis for 7 years, and we have a 4-year-old daughter named Brecken, who is, without exaggeration, the best thing I've ever done with my life. Hollis is a good man, patient, steady, the kind of person who fixes things quietly, a leaking faucet, a creaky door, a bad day. He shows love through doing, not saying, and for a long time, that was enough. More than enough. But there's one thing Hollis has never been able to fix, and that's his sister, Margot. Margot is 2 years older than Hollis, and from the moment I entered the family, she made it clear that I was an outsider. Not in the obvious way. She never screamed at me or threw things. Margot's cruelty was surgical, precise. She'd compliment me in a way that left a bruise. "Oh, Darcy, that dress is so brave," she'd say at family dinners. Or she'd ask about my job and then turn to someone else mid-sentence, like the answer wasn't worth hearing. The first year Hollis and I were married, she pulled me aside at a barbecue and said, "I just want you to know, I've always been the most important woman in Hollis's life. I'm not saying that to be cruel. I'm saying it so you know where you stand." I told Hollis that night. He sighed, rubbed his face with both hands and said, "That's just Margot. She doesn't mean anything by it." I heard that sentence so many times over the years, it became background noise. That's just Margot. Like her name was an explanation and an excuse all at once. Sometimes you don't realize how much weight you've been carrying until someone points out that your shoulders haven't dropped in years. My mother, Colleen, saw through Margot immediately. She's the kind of woman who raised 4 kids on a teacher's salary after my dad left, and she doesn't have time for nonsense. One Thanksgiving, we were peeling potatoes side by side in her kitchen. She said, "That sister-in-law of yours is a piece of work." "Mom." "I'm serious, Darcy. The way she talks to you in front of everyone, and nobody says a word, that's not family. That's an audience watching someone get bullied and calling it tradition." "Hollis tries." "Does he? Because trying looks different from what I've been seeing." I didn't have a response for that. I just kept peeling potatoes, the blade moving faster than it should have. Things got worse after Brecken was born. Margot showed up at the hospital, uninvited, took one look at my daughter and said, "She looks just like Hollis, thank God." The implication being that looking like me would have been unfortunate. My friend Adrian, who was there helping me with the overnight bag, actually gasped. Margot just smiled like she'd said something perfectly normal. Adrian pulled me aside later in the hallway while I was shuffling to the vending machine in my hospital gown. "Darcy, please tell me you're not going to let that slide." "What am I supposed to do? She's his sister." "And you're his wife, carrying his child, in a hospital bed. If that doesn't earn you basic respect, what does?" Adrian and I had been friends since our first teaching jobs, both of us fresh out of college, sharing a classroom supply closet and splitting the cost of laminating sheets. She was blunt in a way that felt like love, never like judgment. But even she couldn't make me see what I wasn't ready to see. After Brecken turned 1, Margot started making comments about my parenting. Subtle ones at first. "Oh, you're still using that brand of formula?" Or, "Brecken seems a little behind on her words, doesn't she?" She'd say these things at family gatherings, always with witnesses, always with that sweet, concerned voice that made it sound like she was worried rather than attacking. And Hollis's parents, Loretta and Jean, would nod along or change the subject, which felt like agreement, where Margot had spent 20 minutes telling a story about a friend whose child had developmental delays. looking directly at Brecken the entire time. When I tried to redirect the conversation, she put her hand on my arm and said, "Oh, Darcy, I wasn't talking about Brecken. Don't be so paranoid." And everyone at the table just moved on, like it was nothing. Like I was the one being unreasonable for noticing. On the drive home, Brecken fell asleep in the back seat, and the silence between Hollis and me filled the car like something solid. "You need to talk to her," I said. "I will." "You said that at New Year's, and before that at your mom's birthday, and before that at the 4th of July picnic where she told your cousin I was simple." "I know, Darcy. It's just... she's my sister. It's complicated." "It's not complicated, Hollis. She's cruel to me and she's starting on our daughter. That's not complicated. That's unacceptable." He went quiet. That particular quiet that told me the conversation was over, whether I wanted it to be or not. His hands tightened on the steering wheel and he stared straight ahead, and I realized I was alone in that car in every way that mattered. I've come to understand that people don't stay silent because they don't see what's happening. They stay silent because speaking up would cost them something they're not willing to pay. That summer, I threw myself into work. I was developing a new reading curriculum for my school, staying late most evenings, partly because I cared about the project, and partly because the quiet of an empty classroom felt safer than going home to the tension that had settled into our walls. My colleague Porter, who taught 4th grade across the hall, noticed. "You've been here past 6 every day this week," he said one Thursday, leaning against my doorframe. "Everything okay?" "Just busy." "Busy or hiding?" I looked up from my desk. "Both, probably." Porter didn't push. He never did, which was part of why I trusted him. He just set a coffee on my desk, cream, no sugar, because he'd paid attention, and said, "You know where to find me." It was a small thing, but when someone's been making you feel invisible, being seen by anyone feels enormous. Then came the engagement announcement. Margot was marrying a man named Thatcher, a finance guy she'd been dating for 8 months. The engagement party was lavish, over the top, and hosted at Loretta and Jean's house. I wasn't consulted about anything but was expected to attend, smile, and help set up. Which I did because that's what I always did. During the party, Margot pulled me into the hallway and said, with that razor wire smile, "I'm going to need everyone to pitch in for the wedding. Hollis already agreed to help with costs. I told him you'd handle the flowers." "Margot, we haven't discussed." "It's already arranged, Darcy. Don't make this about you." I stood in that hallway, holding a glass of sparkling water, and felt something I hadn't felt before. Not sadness, not frustration, but a cold, clean anger. The kind that doesn't burn, it just clarifies. Over the next 3 months, the wedding consumed everything. Margot called our house constantly. She needed things, money, time, labor, and she extracted them through Hollis like he was an ATM she'd memorized the PIN to. He wrote checks without telling me. He volunteered our weekends for venue visits and tasting appointments. When I pushed back, he'd say, "It's 1 day, Darcy. Can we just get through it?" Meanwhile, our own life was fraying. Brecken had started having nightmares, waking up at 2, 3 in the morning, screaming for me. I was exhausted. We were behind on our property taxes because of the money Hollis kept funneling toward the wedding. My mom called one evening and heard it in my voice immediately. "What's going on?" "Nothing, Mom. Just tired." "Darcy Ann, don't you dare nothing me. I can hear when my daughter is drowning." So I told her about the money, about Margot, about Hollis's refusal to draw a line. She was quiet for a long time, then said, "You remember what I told you when your father left? That sometimes love isn't enough?" "That's right. Love isn't enough if respect isn't in the room with it." That conversation stayed with me like a stone in my shoe. Every step I took, I felt it. Looking back, I can trace the exact pattern of how I kept shrinking myself to fit inside a space Margot had designed to be too small for me. And I did it willingly, every single time, because I thought that was what being family meant. The florist call was the match that lit the fuse. $700. My credit card. Nobody had asked me. When I confronted Hollis that evening after Brecken was in bed, he sat at the kitchen table and said, "Margot said you offered." I never offered. I've never even spoken to the florist before today. She said, "She lied, Hollis. She put my credit card number on file without my knowledge. That's not a misunderstanding. That's theft." His face changed then. I watched the realization cross his features. Slow, uncomfortable, undeniable. I'll talk to her. You've been saying that for 7 years. I know. Do you? Because I'm not sure you understand what's at stake anymore. This isn't about flowers. This is about the fact that your sister has been treating me like garbage since the day we met, and you have let her. Every single time. He didn't argue. He just sat there, jaw tight, staring at the table. And for the first time, I didn't fill his silence with reassurances. I let it sit between us like a living thing. The next morning, I called Margot myself. I sat on the edge of my bed at 6 a.m. while Hollis was in the shower and Brecken was still asleep, and I dialed her number with shaking hands but a steady voice. "Margot, I need you to remove my credit card from the florist account and reimburse me for the deposit." She laughed. Actually laughed. This bright, tinkling laugh like I'd told a joke at brunch. "Darcy, don't be dramatic. It's for the wedding. We're family. Family doesn't forge authorizations. Family doesn't use someone's financial information without their consent. I want the money back by Friday, or I'll dispute the charge with my bank." There was a pause, a long one. Then her voice dropped, lower, colder, stripped of the performance. "You're really going to do this? Over flowers?" "This isn't about flowers, Margot, and you know it." The line went dead. Within an hour, Loretta called. Then Jean. Then Hollis's phone started buzzing non-stop. The narrative was already being rewritten. I was the difficult one, the selfish one, the one ruining Margot's special day. Loretta left a voicemail that said, "Darcy, I've always treated you like my own daughter. I don't understand why you're doing this to our family." I played it for Hollis that night. He listened with his eyes closed. When it ended, I said, "I need you to choose, not between me and your sister, between what's right and what's easy. Because I can't do this anymore." That was the moment I realized I hadn't been fighting Margot all these years. I'd been fighting for Hollis to see me, really see me, and that fight had cost me more of myself than I ever meant to give away. Hollis called Margot the next day. I don't know everything that was said, but I heard his voice from behind the closed office door, firm in a way I'd never heard before. He said, "You stole from my wife, and you've been mistreating her for years, and I'm done pretending I don't see it." I heard Margot's voice through the phone, shrill and rapid, and then Hollis said, "No, I'm not discussing this. You owe Darcy an apology, and you owe us that money. Until both of those things happen, I won't be at the wedding." She hung up on him. Loretta called that night, furious, demanding Hollis reconsider. He told her the same thing. Jean sent a text that said, "Don't let your wife ruin your sister's wedding, son." Hollis stared at it for a long time, then set his phone face down on the counter. "I'm sorry," he said to me. "I should have done this years ago." "Yeah, you should have." He flinched, but I wasn't going to soften it. Not this time. Margot got married on a Saturday in late September. The weather was perfect, one of those golden autumn evenings that felt almost cruel in its beauty, like the universe hadn't gotten the memo about what was happening inside our family. We weren't there. Hollis sat on our back porch that evening, quiet, watching Brecken chase fireflies in the yard. His phone sat face up on the armrest, screen dark. No one had called. I brought out 2 glasses of iced tea and sat next to him. The crickets were loud, and the air smelled like cut grass in someone's grill a few houses down. Neither of us said anything for a long time. Finally, he said, "My mom hasn't spoken to me in 2 weeks." "I know. I don't know if she will." "I know that too." He looked at me. His eyes were tired in a way that sleep wouldn't fix. Was it worth it? I thought about it. Really thought about it. About the years of swallowed words, the credit card, the hospital room, the comments about Brecken, the Easter brunch, the hundreds of tiny cuts I'd absorbed with a smile. About my mother's voice on the phone saying love isn't enough without respect.
"You standing up for me was worth it," I said. "But it cost us something. And I won't pretend it didn't." He nodded. Brecken ran over with a dandelion, breathless and grinning, and shoved it into Hollis's hand. "For you, Daddy!" He pulled her into his lap and held her tight, and I saw his eyes go glassy. Adrian called me the next morning. "How are you holding up?" "Honestly, I don't know. I got what I wanted. Hollis finally chose me. But his family might never forgive him for it. And I know part of him blames me, even if he'd never say it." "That's not blame, Darcy. That's grief. He's losing something. You both are." She was right. We'd won, but the victory had a weight to it that I hadn't expected. The house was quieter now. No calls from Loretta about Sunday dinners, no holiday plans being made over our heads. Just silence where family used to be. It was peaceful, and it was lonely, often at the same time. My mom came over the following weekend. She played with Brecken in the living room while I made dinner, and at one point she looked up at me and said, "You did the right thing, sweetheart." "Then why does it feel so heavy?" "Because the right thing and the easy thing are almost never the same. You know that." "I do know that. I've known it my whole life. I just kept hoping this would be the exception." Hollis and I are still finding our footing. Some days are good, better than they've been in years. Other days, I catch him staring at his phone, and I know he's hoping for a call that hasn't come. We haven't heard from Margot since the wedding. Loretta sent a brief, formal text last month asking about Brecken's birthday. Hollis responded. She didn't write back. We're building something different now. Smaller, maybe, but honest. Adrian came over last Sunday with her kids, and we had a barbecue in the backyard. Nothing fancy, just burgers and store-bought coleslaw and the kids running wild through the sprinkler. Hollis manned the grill and actually laughed at something Porter said. I'd invited him and his wife because our circle was smaller now, and we needed to fill it with people who made us feel whole, not hollow. At one point, I stood at the kitchen window watching all of them and thought, this is what family can look like when nobody in the room is trying to make you feel small. I think that's all I ever really wanted. Not a perfect family, just an honest one. One where I didn't have to pretend that cruelty was just someone's personality and silence was the same as peace. Last night, Brecken crawled into my lap before bed, pressed her little face against my neck, and whispered, "Mama, you're my favorite person in the whole world." And I held her so tight, thinking, this is why. This is what I was protecting. Not just myself, the kind of mother she gets to see me be. Have you ever had to stand your ground with family, even when everyone told you to just keep the peace? I'd love to hear how you handled it. Tell me in the comments. And if this story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe. I'm here every week with a new story, and your support truly keeps me going. I'll see you in the next one.